Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's program. My name is Moulik Berkana. I'm the Cultural Affairs Officer at the U.S. Consulate General in Chennai, and I welcome you all to today's program, which is called Beyond Classrooms, New Learning Solutions in Education. We have with us today three very distinguished guests, and I'll go ahead and introduce them in a moment. But first, I wanted just to say that this topic is very timely. Beyond classrooms, I think anyone who has children is aware of the situation now of beyond classrooms and how many students around the world are now learning from home because of the very unique and unprecedented times we find ourselves in. I think this is a very strategic and interesting program that's of interest not only to viewers in India, but also in the United States. I'll share a quote from Abraham Lincoln, who is the 16th President of the United States. Upon the subject of education, not presuming to dictate any plan or system respecting it, I can only say that I view it as the most important subject which we as a people can be engaged in. So, words from on high, the importance of education. Let me go ahead and introduce our three guests today. First, we have with us Dr. K.K. Ramachandran, or KKR, as he's affectionately known by his peers and friends. He's an educator, an acclaimed author, and a leader in his field. He's active in commerce, international business, and management. KKR is currently the vice president at the Dr. GRD College of Science and a director and professor, GRD Institute of Management, and School of Commerce and International Business. KKR is a prolific author who also mentors students and offers insights on entrepreneurship, digital marketing, and education management. KKR is a U.S. government exchange grantee. He was a Fulbright Fellow and has also participated in the International Visitor Leadership Program on a program on education back in 2008. So KKR, welcome. Thank you for joining us today. Our second guest is Mr. Anantharaman Mani, who's the founder and CEO of ReportBee, which is he's an education consultant and he's an entrepreneur. He holds an MBA from the Indian Institute of Management in Bangalore and an electrical engineering degree from the National Institute of Technology. Anantharaman Mani's career has revolved around media and technology. He started his career at a media company, Times of India, in the technology, moved on to Cognizant Technology Solutions in the media division. He was a chairperson for CII's Young India, Chennai chapter, and has led award-winning student projects. Anantharaman Mani is also an alumni of U.S. government exchange programs. He participated in the International Visitor Leadership Program on regional economic connectivity, the NAFTA experience. That was back in 2016. So, Mr. Anantharaman Mani, welcome. Thank you also for joining us today. Our third and final speaker of the afternoon is Professor Dr. Amruth G. Kumar. He's a professor and head of the School of Education at the Central University of Kerala. He is a research awardee of the University Grants Commission in New Delhi and has several research projects to his credit in national and international journals. Dr. Amruth's scholarly interests include critical theory in education, neoliberal policies in education, and policy analysis also in education. He draws a lot of inspiration from poetry, literature, and philosophy in his teaching and in his research. Dr. Amruth participated in the U.S. government exchange program, International Visitor Leadership Program, on the topic of internationalizing and engaging state-level higher education back in 2017. Once again, I thank KKR, Dr. KKR, Mr. Anantharaman Mani, and Professor Amruth for joining us today. So before I turn it over to Dr. KKR, I just wanted to say that for the format of today's program, we will hear from our three speakers, and then we'll have the opportunity to field questions from our audience. So I would encourage you in the chat box on Facebook, if you can please post your questions, and we'll try to get to those in the second half of our show. This program is one of several that the consulate is running right now. We're doing a lot more virtual programming since this COVID lockdown, and so please keep following our social media to see our latest programs. So on to our program, Dr. KKR. I have a question for you. Very recently, a leading India local daily op-ed noted that, quote, tech is the platform of platforms for the new normal after COVID, and that the irreversible shifts in habits and behavior due to the pandemic present both new opportunities to cultivate various business and technology. This could be true across a range of industries that includes education. Would you like to comment on this and anything you see about the US-India partnership that could come out of this? Dr. KKR, over to you.
Check. Thank you, Mr. Moulik, for your kind introduction. I always admire the energy US Consulate General Chennai has got. And this is one of those turnaround and probably doing things in the pandemic, rather. Amazing work. To continue, probably to answer for the question that you posed on me, the pandemic stymied 1.5 billion learners across 88 countries without any access to their committed curriculum. 320 million Indian learners are currently out of school. In the meantime, by sheer trial and error, I believe we have managed to bridge many challenges associated with online education. The challenge will be to create an enabling environment for learning. Digital is also a divide, so we have to ensure quality training and content generation. Post the pandemic, the education ecosystem will transform by leveraging technology to solve many of these issues. Technology will concentrate on improving itself and adapting to the new requirements, so they will also achieve a more interactive and fulfilling for the education industry. Connection and cohabitation will alter the DNA of digital learning. By capitalizing on the digital habits of students, learning can be used to foster rewarding and inspiring virtual environments. The question of when will we return to business as usual is overshadowed by will there be business as usual post-COVID? What I foresee is that a technological revolution is challenging higher education's business model. An explosion in online learning, much of it is free, means that the knowledge once imparted to a lucky few has been released to anyone with a smartphone or a laptop. Right now, we have to embrace an ever-morphing ambiguity, and the quicker we master online tech, the better we will be able to face the future. Having said all these things, I also want to emphasize the fact that tech is just a medium. Tech is just a medium. Engagement in the classroom, whether it is online or offline, is far more important when it comes to learning and education. To emphasize this fact, I would like to probably show a research that I conducted recently. The research was all about this. The question, I'm just taking a couple of points from the research and sharing it here because of the paucity of time. The question that was posed to the students, this is the students who are in the age group of 13 to 17. Think about the class in which you feel you learned the most. What made you think of this particular class? All of them chose one particular class. So the subsequent question is, what made you think of this particular class? Please provide 3 reasons. And these are the reasons given by the students. But if you look at it, 53% of the students gave credit to the teacher. 53% of the students gave credit to the teacher. Teacher-related responses fell about evenly in two different categories. Either they liked the teacher, or they felt the teacher cares, or they felt that teacher respects students, or they felt teacher makes it fun to learn. I mean, the learning was made a lot more interesting and easy. Or the teaching pedagogy, the teaching methods that the faculty has or the teacher has probably done to that particular class. When we ask this question, this is like, say, almost a lakh of students have probably responded to this research. And what we have figured out is 53% of the students still feel teacher, the teaching methods, and the connection between the teacher and the student decides the fate of learning, whether it is online or offline. Yes, online is a brilliant medium. There is no doubt about it. Technology empowers a teacher today, rather. The normally shy the normal camera shy teacher all of a sudden is all over Zoom, Microsoft Team, Google Meet. In every platform they are teaching. That's what we have seen as such, rather. But I strongly believe that technology is a big advantage which we can leap and probably use it to our to the education portals, which otherwise was not tech savvy, rather. I mean, like India, Germany didn't use much of online education at all. It was just the PowerPoints which the faculty or the student teachers might have used. But today, everything has changed thanks to the pandemic. I mean, I wouldn't say thanks to the pandemic. Post-COVID, let's see like how exactly we can continue this mode of teaching and learning probably on the long run. And again, I emphasize with the fact that it is only the teacher's involvement, teachers' methodology, and the way in which they approach the students will decide the fate of learning both online and offline. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. KKR, for those remarks and for your slide. You talked about the digital divide. You talked about the promise of technology or the potential of technology post-COVID to address a lot of issues in education. But I think you raised a really important point about the role of teachers. And as you were talking, I was thinking, you know, that obviously online learning is not the same as learning in person, but the role of the teacher is also there in technology. So even if it is a virtual learning situation, the role of the teacher is still just as important as if they're physically in the classroom. So I thank you very much for those remarks. Let's move to our second speaker now, Mr. Ananth Mani. Ananth, I'd like to present this issue to you. There was a recent news article that said that the coronavirus pandemic shines a light on the deep digital divide around the world, as well as efforts to narrow it. This again is this topic of the so-called digital divide. Perhaps this comment is in response to the challenges about the transition to online learning, and then highlights issues of internet access services or technology that are required from home to be able to log in and participate in online learning. So with that background, what are some of your thoughts on this topic? Over to you, Mr. Ananth.
Yeah.
Thank you.
First, thank you for inviting me for this fantastic program. And I've always been a big fan of US Consulate's outreach program. And this is very pertinent, and it is the call of the hour. Right now in education, I think we are facing a watershed movement, which has been unprecedented in terms of the scale in which it's getting operated, right? I will focus my response to this particular question in terms of digital divide to K-12, just in terms of K-12. In K-12, if I look at K-12, I'll kind of divide that into two segments, which is the primary part of the K-12 education and the secondary. When you look at the primary, and I'm not personally convinced that the digital is playing a bigger role, because most of the pedagogy was revolving not based on the digital, right? It is most teacher-centric and imparting the knowledge through the teacher, teacher-led was the focus. So I don't think we were prepared for it. So even if we have a magic wand and say that, okay, every kid will have a tablet and we have an internet connection which is free, affordable, I don't think technology is going to move the needle in terms of learning outcomes for the primary kids. I mean, I say primary, I would say from the grade 1 to say 6, 7, 8. So, and the problem there is in terms of not the digital as such, in terms of device and connectivity, but in terms of the learning pedagogy, teacher training, and the way they can impart the knowledge in this new medium. And I don't think anywhere in the world is prepared for primary education shift purely online. It can augment, at best it could supplement what is being taught in the classroom. But I do not know, I think we have a solution if, God forbid, the pandemic extends for another 6 months or 8 months or a year or more. We do not know how to impart effectively teaching knowledge and learning for the primary education. So there, I'm not too worried about the digital divide because I think most of the learning happens without even the digital equipments. But when you come to the secondary education, especially the middle school and higher grades, there I think we have seen success in terms of digital learning, and we've been having this for quite some time, where teachers, especially in affordable schools and little premium schools, where they have experimented with edtech solutions and they were able to have success in terms of students learning. Now here, if the scale in which the country is, especially government schools and municipality schools, if we have to offer online education, there, I think the biggest constraint, yes, I would say digital divide is a constraint, but bigger than that is in terms of the infrastructure or the environment that is available in home. Even for the very simple online conference that we had to prepare our rooms. We need to have a separate room for ourselves to sit and talk, right? How many students do have, even if I give a tablet or a mobile, to have an environment which is noise-free, which is kind of a hindrance, not from other people in the room or the family. So those things play a bigger factor. And in a country like India, where we have other infrastructural and housing related issues, and in terms of the density of the population, I think the digital part will play, even if you solve that and you provide kids with tablets and internet connection, I think that is going to be a big problem, right? In fact, some of the schools in the country, I reached out to some government schools who have launched this, especially for 10th and 12th online programs. The attendance is very poor. And when they reached out to students, why attendance is poor is saying that, hey, because the noise from the traffic and a bunch of other things is disturbing, I do not know where I can sit and probably listen to this class, right? And so those things play a bigger role. But I'd like to, I'm a very optimistic person, and I would say that this whole situation is kind of can be a positive outcome, right? And in terms of at least some portion, I would say 15 to 20% of online of teaching, which the school does in government schools, if they can shift to online education, and that means not just giving gadgets and the pedagogy in which they can impart that particular knowledge and teaching, right? And in terms of engaging with the students, I think that will be the biggest outcome, because many of the tools that is being developed in this time could be made freely available for the rest of the humanity. And I believe that that will be the best outcome of this pandemic, where many of those conferencing tool and testing tools and assessment tools that we're investing and developing can be given away open sourced and given to a lot more students. So while the digital divide is playing a big role in the developed nations, I think it's less of a concern, yes, because we have bigger problems than the digital divide per se. That's is the kind of view I want to share.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Anantharaman Mani, for those views on the digital divide, and you focused on K through 12 and that particular case. And you raised a very good and practical point about the home environment. And, you know, is it possible, even if the students have the digital tools, do they have the physical space around them that supports it? Not only a quiet environment, but a distraction-free environment. And I think that that's a real challenge, especially right now, where so many people are confined to their homes. It is hard to find perhaps that privacy for a student to be able to focus and study. So thank you for the remarks. Let's turn to our third speaker, Dr. Amruth excuse me, Dr. Amruth, I understand that you're working on a government project that is focused on empowering teachers. And I'm just wondering if you could share some information about this project and maybe some policy recommendations that are focused on the transition of technology to virtual classrooms. And if you think this transition will be seamless, or if you foresee some challenges as we look at more of a trend to move towards virtual classrooms. So Dr. Amruth, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Moulik. It's a great event. I congratulate you and your team at Chennai Constellate for this wonderful program. There are two parts in the question that you've posed to me. The first part is about the project that I am heading, which is related to empowerment of teachers in India. That project is mainly called as, that project is called as Untitled Chapter National Mission on Teaching. And these projects basically look at improving the teaching quality, basic skills of teachers, starting from school to university level. And this project has a great opportunity for supporting teachers across the country. We have tried so many programs which adopts and use technology for improving the teaching and teaching abilities of the teachers across the country. The government of India has several similar kind of programs like National Resource Center, Swayam, massive open online programs, and then the latest government budget has announced massive online open programs in which not only a course but a whole program is delivered through the mass online open platforms. So this is all about the projects that I am having, and then some of the similar projects that we have in India. And the second part of the question is the policy, implications and its challenges. Of course, I don't think that it's going to be a very seamless effort to engage the whole population of students in India to connect with the internet and then online support system. Before planning for or looking into the policy matters or policy formations, we have to look at the context of India in which how this digital learning is going on. When we look at it, we can see that after the COVID, and even I'm sure that before COVID, because of the digital advancement in learning, and it has reached a peak after the COVID, during the COVID lockdown period, we are seeing a resource glut in the field of educational resources. Teachers who were at home, who has to engage online classes, they started working on Zoom, they started working on Google Meet, they started working on WhatsApp videos, WhatsApp audio lectures, and several other platforms. As a result, what happens? There is a resource glut or an overload of resources which are coming up into the online platform. And institutions have started the idea of commons in which they collect the resources from teachers and provide it free for students so that they can access without the permission of anyone. So as a result, institutions also started building up a kind of a fixed deposit of knowledge from the teachers that students can draw at any point in time without the permission of teachers or institution or so. And then again, we know, in addition to this kind of resource overload, we can see that the devices of the students which are used by the students, that means a mobile phone or a laptop or whatsoever it be, students start downloading huge amount of data in the form of PDF, in the form of video classes, in the form of audio classes, of course, YouTube lives, video lives, and so many that kind of modes. Devices has become a kind of a bank of knowledge devices. They're depositing lots of knowledge in the devices. And cloud, we know, cloud deposit also has grown exponentially after the COVID, during the COVID lockdown period. What's going to happen as a result of this is we are going to see two categories of students. The students in the future will be treated on the basis of their ability to locate and save the information those students who are able to save information systematically, those students who are not able to save the information systematically. So even if the information is there within their devices, they may not be able to access it sometimes because of their poor systematic downloading or saving of the information. So as a result, as I told you, institutional commons, devices, cloud, all these things are getting overloaded with deposits. The most important challenge, the policy or challenge that we are going to face is the information skill of our students. How to locate information, because there is a glut of resources, how to locate information, how to download it, how to check its authenticity, how to know whether this information is applicable in our real life situation, and how to use this information. All these are going to be a really great challenge for our students. I do believe that we need a new movement in this regard, because the literacy movement which happened across India, and Kerala was one of the pioneer in that field. I do believe that it's going to be a pre-literacy moment now. Now, literacy moment means we have to engage in information literacy. As and when everything is available in the online, what's going to happen? Students is going to be responsible for their access to knowledge. Now, not the excess of knowledge is the most important issue. So when student is made responsible for accessing their own knowledge, now I'm sure they're given with freedom to search, but their ability to evaluate the information, their ability to apply the information, and their ability to store the information systematically is under serious challenge that we have to address very seriously. And this is going to be one of the most important challenge across the world, I believe. And our students are good at multitasking. They are good at using internet, digital devices. But when it's a matter of accessing information, the right information, the perfect information, authentic information, I suspect, I doubt the ability of our student. That's what I want to comment about the first question. Thank you, Moulik.
Well, thank you, Dr. Amruth, for those remarks. And what you were saying about the ability of accessing information and the ability to evaluate it for its authenticity and to download and to store it and to organize it. I think that that's very applicable probably to a lot of adults, certainly to me, and just sifting through all of the online resources and how to organize that and make sense of it. So that is a real challenge. And when I look at my young sons, for example, and their engagement with the digital world, I wonder how they're going to face some of those challenges with just so much coming in. I mentioned at the top that we will have the opportunity for question and answers from our audience. And I'm very pleased we're getting a lot of questions in. But before we turn to the Q&A segment, I just wanted to briefly go back in the same order with which we spoke when we started, starting with Dr. KKR and moving to Anantharaman Mani, and then finally Dr. Amruth. If you have anything additional you'd like to share based on our conversation so far, maybe just a minute or two to summarize key points, or any thoughts before we move to the audience's questions. So again, we'll start with Dr. KKR.
Tech is a medium which empowers the teachers of 21st century. Whether online or offline, how exactly the teacher engages with the students will decide the fruits of learning. And today, 21st century teachers will have the advantage of using a variety of technological space, which can actually make the students a lot more involved. That's it.
Very good. Thank you, Dr. KKR. Anantharaman Mani, would you like to share some thoughts before we move to the question and answer session? Please, Mr. Anantharaman Mani, please unmute your microphone. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I think the government should take this as an opportunity to create basic infrastructure. Specifically, I've been talking to some of the government school principals, and they said that, hey, we do not even have a database of parents' mobile number. to reach out to them, right? So there's something called the school management system. So have a base infrastructure for able to reach out in this kind of situation in terms of online learning. Second is in terms of at least some portion, which I said previously, about 10% of the teaching should be allocated for online learning pedagogy, right? That should be one of the focus, and investment should be made in this specific thing for the next 2-3 years. And as we move progress further, I think this percentage can be increased, specifically for the secondary and higher secondary school students. Yeah, and that's it from my side. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you for those thoughts. Dr. Amruth, back to you. Do you have any thoughts or summary comments before we move to the question and answer?
Sure. Thank you, Moulik. Yes, I just wanted to add that as I was talking about student being responsible for their own learning in the online system, because everything is available for them. You know, as a result of this knowledge which is directly coming to the devices, and the students are accessing this information at their home, the interference of the parents is going to be increased in the process of learning. I mean, students' responsibilities further being increased in that way. What happens if if a teacher upload a video of their class, you know, this is not only being watched by the student, but also the parents, then automatically the students, the teachers are now going not only accountable to the school system, but also directly accountable or under the surveillance of the parents as well. This is going to be another important pressure for the teacher and student as well. You know, also, I could predict that, or I could, based on the general trend, I could say that what's going to be happen as a result of this this online learning system, which is happening at present. Our ear is going to grow exponentially than our eyes, because all the videos, say for example, even if it's a video, when it comes to me, I don't want to watch the whole video. I don't want to look at the face of the teacher or the resource person for throughout the time. If it's a webinar or if it's a class, I'll just switch on. Sound will come. I will engage in cooking. I will engage in exercise. I will engage in everything. So I need sometimes a more better or a more efficient or a bigger ear in the online learning system. That's what's going to happen in this modern kind of. So I was just trying to see that this one sense is going to be more effective. No student will be interested in reading from a PDF, but they will be happy if there is a video and audio is there, but they will not watch the video unless there is, you know, beautiful picturization. If it's a monotonous lecture of a teacher, they will listen and listen and listen. Listening is going to outgrow our eyes. Ear is going to outgrow our eyes. That's what's going to happen. Yeah, I can add up in continuation with that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Amruth. That's an interesting insight, because when I think of digital technology, I think primarily of the visual component. So it's interesting that you're thinking that the trend will be more towards the audio listening. So that's interesting. So yeah, through this discussion, I mean, just to summarize, traditional classrooms are changing. They've already changed. And, you know, just to note for the US Consulate General here in Chennai, we are also supporting a lot of online courses through the so-called Massive Open Online Courses, or MOOCs. And we partner with US universities to make those classes available in South India. So that's an option just to put out there. I mentioned we're getting a lot of questions, and let me direct a question to, let's start with Dr. KKR. This is a question from a viewer, Miland Date, who's asking about the responsibility of students while they're learning online, that the students need to be more responsive in their engagement with online platforms. How do you see that, Dr. KKR?
Maybe that's the first challenge which educators across the globe are facing when it comes to handling the students. Well, let's understand the fact that it is amazing to think that 1/3 of the population has been born since 2001. And they have never known a non-digital world. We call them as Gen Zs. Gen Z. India, which has got about 1.3 billion people, Gen Z's population is around 500 million. This generation doesn't behave, believe, and live the way in which the previous generations lived. Because this is the first digital generation, I will call it as first digital generation. Having said that, they are the generation which is the most distracted generation. Whether it is in the class or online, the situation remains the same. Because we are now dealing with online students, we see some of these distractions and probably try to respond on how exactly do we address them. This generation comes with a different approach and lifestyle as such, where they believe to learn things in a faster manner through videos, and their attention span is just 3.5 minutes. Beyond that, they don't have attention span. So the way in which we used to teach, the way in which we approach the students has to change. We can't have a 20th century pedagogy which has to probably deal with the 21st century students. All these years we had students, but this generation is a complete different generation where digital plays a vital role. And yes, they are a distracted generation. We need to make newer approaches, innovative methodologies to arrest their attention and inspire to probably make them to learn better.
Okay, very good. On that same Oh, sorry. On the same question, would our other two speakers, Mr. Anantharaman Mani or Dr. Amruth, like to add anything to what Dr. KKR just said on that same topic? Okay, Mr. Anand, please unmute your microphone.
Okay, I think I need to get the habit of unmuting it. I think the point I concur with what Dr. KKR said. In addition to that, I would say that in terms of motivation has been one of the biggest bottlenecks for students to go online. Like I said, even if a course is offered, only 20% or 30% attendance is there from government school students, right? We need to find the real source for in terms of what can push and motivate, because these are digital native students. While they can do a lot of things digitally, while learning is still there's certain resistance to it in terms of the kind of interest they're showing for other things. If you can find the motivation and push them, because once the motivation is they reach certain curve, they kind of learn on their own and pick a lot of things, right? And for me, if we can learn how to push them to have that initial urge to find things on their own, if that can be solved and modified, that'll be great.
All right, thank you. And Dr. Amruth, good timing here. We have actually a question directed specifically to you. This is from Rosaline Valaichami. She's asking, is going digital really feasible in India? And she's asking you, Dr. Amruth in particular, how can we as teachers ascertain that the students are actually paying attention?
Yep. Thank you, Moulik. That's a very important question because, you know, as per the present Indian context, the digital online learning is going to be a practice which is going to benefit only a minority of Indian elite urban class citizens. Actually, you know, in India, we know that only 20 in a recent study conducted by the Pew, Pew, shows that only 24% of Indians own a smartphone. Only 24%. Out of which only 11 household, you know, when we compare the total households in India, only 11% of the household possess any kind of a computer. So only 24% owns a mobile phone and only 11% owns a computer. As we know that more than nearly 70% of India is living in rural India, means remote India, in which we know that the statistics as per the National Sample Survey Organization, which shows that only 8% of the household members have, only 24% of Indian rural has internet connectivity. And while taking the case of students in between between 5 to 24 years, only 8% of them have a digital device as their own in India. When we take the whole case, this has been given by National Sample Survey Organization of Government of India. I'm sure that in India, a school is not only for learning actually. The school is meant for their midday meal. The school is meant for the emotional support. The school is meant for several other purposes in India. School is not a center which only cater to the students' learning needs in India. So when digital learning is getting online, what do our students do for their midday meal? Is an important question. Many of the students do manage their 3-day meals by getting breakfast, lunch, and then some kind of food from the school. Take the case of Attapadi, a tribal area in India where children are really struggling because the schools are closed and their regular meals are being dropped. And when we talk about the families, we know that the families with cultural capital, means those who are living in the urban elites and elite urbans, have good cultural capital. When they come across a technical glitch, when they come across an academic issue, they can help their children. But I'm sure that more than 70% of the Indian parents do not have the capacity to support their children when there is a technical glitch, when there is an academic need. So it's going to be an increased widening of gap between haves and have-nots when we entirely focus upon it. So what we need is a synchronized learning system where the student responds immediately to the teacher, where the teacher provides not only learning but also provides emotional support. Teacher acts as a parent, and teacher takes manifold responsibilities in an Indian school. It's not only learning actually. So in that way, I don't think that immediately it's not possible for us to jump into online learning system. Before that, we have to set up a good ground for that. We have to educate our children, not only our children, we have to educate our parents. Say, for example, take the case of a family with 2 children, and parents have 1 mobile phone, and both the children have online classes. How do they share their system? And what about a girl child? As per the Indian tradition, Orthodox, most of the families, even they are living in urban centers, we are Orthodox to a great extent. Say, for example, not willing to spare the mobile phone to girl children, thinking that they will engage in some other kind of activities or something of that sort. So these all are the real issues that we are coming across when we look into the issues of learning. Online learning. This is all beyond the romanticization of online learning. We have to look into the hardcore realities of this kind of system. We have a lot of challenge for that. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Amruth. And your remarks echo some of the questions coming in, and I'd like to stick with that for a moment, just because I think as much as there's the potential and the promise of technological solutions, there's still a lot of practical limits and even skepticism. And some of the questions, if I could just summarize, there's questions about health concerns, maybe what we call in the United States, the amount of screen time. And rather than playing outside or getting fresh air, students are more and more confined to screens, whether they're televisions or tablets or phones. And then we talked about the issue of the digital divide and the challenges that we face about the access to technology. And there's also some questions about, the validity of exams. If exams are going online, is that the same? Can we trust the same results as if the exams were administered in person? So let me again take the speakers in the same order. I'd like to hear from you about some of this skepticism or some of these practical challenges that some of our viewers are raising. So Dr. KKR, I know you're a big proponent of technology, but how would you address some of these questions of skepticism? Dr. KKR, please unmute your microphone. Thank you.
Well, change is something that most of us are not comfortable with? Well, education wanted a disruption. Education was needing a disruption. Everything around us has changed. Everything around us has changed. The way in which we buy music, store music, share music has changed. The way in which we click pictures have changed. The way in which we smile at people has changed through smileys. The way in which we transact with a bank has changed. The way in which maps are being looked upon has changed. Now, education hasn't changed much, purely because technology was not disrupting the way in which it should, rather. Imagine the world's biggest company, the world's biggest travel company doesn't own any car. I'm talking about Uber. Similarly, Coursera today is one of those biggest universities on the world where people go up and join courses. Yes, definitely there are challenges. I don't deny the fact that there is no challenges. There will be challenges. There should be challenges. These are all teething troubles when a new change comes in. This disruption was needed. And I'm not an advocate of everything to be online. Yes, there is technology. Can we use it to address the 21st century students by making them a lot more engaging, meaningful, rather? Today, we have been used to go in a particular format when it comes to education in India particularly. For example, in Germany, online education is not in play because they focus heavily on skills. But what I mean here is that what happened with every industry will happen in higher education. Even though there is a challenge, even though there is a teething trouble, all these will be addressed on the long run. There is no shortcuts to it.
Well, thank you, Dr. KKR. Those are good thoughts. And you know, it occurs to me also that the students getting practice using the technology that will benefit them later, because as you rightly point out, the technology has changed not only in education, but across the spectrum, including in our work environments. So if students at an early age get skilled with using technology, that will help them in their future careers and their future life, because technology is also present in those realms as well. Mr. Ananth Mani, do you have any thoughts you'd like to share on this topic?
Yeah, sure. For me, it's the kind of a mindset where I think we like to put things against each other, saying that, hey, this is going to take over this and it's going to completely replace, right? And people thought that once TV came, we will not be listening to radio or music in terms of that particular format. And once movie comes, and probably we will not do certain other things. When television came, it will completely take over cinema. I think we like to put this thing saying that fight between these two things. The way I like to look at things and way things typically evolve in the world is it will mutually coexist and transform and kind of have a symbiotic relationship. The online learning will augment regular teaching, right? And it's also because of the kind of jobs that is going to come. Like if I'm doing a digital photo, that is Photoshop learning, right? Online Photoshop learning, or I'm doing a Photoshop learning. There's no way I cannot learn it non-digital, because the work skill set requires me to be using computer and digital learning, right? Even computer science, if I'm going to learn, I'm going to learn online, right? So the skill set that humans are building up, the newer set of jobs, a lot of jobs are purely online jobs or digital jobs. And that's the only way to learn those jobs is through digital medium, through technology. But apart from down to K-12, where the technology has not kind of made that kind of impact like it's making in other field. But I think it's slowly making in terms of simple repetitive tests, simple test assessments, those things are, technology is playing a bigger role, and they will mutually exist along with a good quality teacher with a fantastic pedagogy. I don't think these things are mutually exclusive. I think it's not a zero-sum game. One will feed on to each other, and the whole sum of all the part will be bigger than each of the parts. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ananth Mani. You raise a good point at perhaps the human tendency to put things in opposition, and it's not one or the other, but it can be a blend, and it can be a complementary approach. Let's go to Dr. Amruth, for any thoughts you have on this topic. I know that you're doing policy research, so I'm sure you have some insights on this.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's the binary that either online or face-to-face teaching is going on. I do also support what Mr. Anantharaman Mani says. They have to coexist in an educational ecosystem. They have to, of course, they have to coexist, and they should find their own space in wherever this technology can be applied and wherever this face-to-face teaching has to be applied. There is a popular belief among the people that technology can increase or technology can be an equalizer. Actually, can be an equalizer, and a lot of people do believe that when technology is applied, children are more interested. I would like to cite a case which I have read from a journal, which happened in UCLA, University of California at Los Angeles, and they have given a tablet to all the students, and this tablet means institutional tablet, which is given to the students, which has only the institutional software, no social media, nothing of that sort. Students have kept it at their home, saying that holding two laptops are difficult for them. One mobile and laptops are difficult for them because they can use their own personal digital device for both institutional purpose and their social media and other purposes. So the interest that the younger generation shows to the devices is not because they wanted to learn further and explore more further with the help of devices, but instead the tacit potential entertainment possibility of the devices is the most important factor that allure the modern generation. And that we have to understand. And after looking at this particular ability of the digital technology to allure the modern young generation, in spite of its capacity to attract a large number of students to different sources of information. If you are trying to substitute the whole system of face-to-face teaching, that's what the trends of discussions are going on. Now everything should be online. That's what's going on. And the government even is thinking about converting everything into online because it helped the government to increase the enrollment. Say, for example, when we look at the enrollment in India, at present at higher education level, we have 24.6% of enrollment at higher education level. And if when MOOC program is introduced, that can be increased to 50% in 5 to 6 years. So that's a magic. But how do these students learn from their colleagues? How do these students learn from their peer? How do they learn from this ecosystem of the educational institution? All these questions remain unanswered in a discussion, a trend of discussion where we place online education or when we substitute online education for face-to-face education system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amruth. And just keeping an eye on the clock, we have about 8 minutes left in this program. Perhaps time for 1 or 2 more questions and then some concluding remarks. This is a more general question. This is from Isha Arora. I don't think it's so much about technology, but she says, we study a lot rigorously for grades, but work life has nothing to do with grades. What we wish to do and what most of the time we do doesn't match. What is the one change, and perhaps this could be a final question to each of you, what is the one change that you suggest in education to help kids achieve what they want? I'll let you take up that question or perhaps another topic as you make your concluding remarks. But Dr. KKR, back to you. Why don't you feel free to take on this question about the match between the academic study and the real life situation, and any other final words you'd like to say.
Well, when it comes to, I interact a lot with the students, and there are a lot of them who come up and ask me, like, once they finish their 10th grade, 12th grade, college, and masters, what do I do next? What do I do next? So I will predominantly tell them, do something that you are keen on. What is that you like? What is that you are keen on? And most of them come up and say, I'm keen on dancing, I'm keen on singing, I'm keen on cooking. Well, professionally, what is that you would like to probably do? Or maybe I put them the next question, what is your strength? What is your strength? They say what they think that point of time, what their strength is. Or somebody said this, what is your strength? most of us, most of the student generation, don't know what their strength is. And in academia, we focus on the weakness. We focus on the weakness and try to make them improvise. But I strongly believe the moment we start focusing on strength, for example, a student who's exceptionally good in English, social science, and not so good at numericals, gets focused heavily on the numericals than actually the English and the social science. The moment we start focusing heavily on the strength, that's a game changer. Why I'm saying so is that I'm a strength coach. What I believe that, what my school of thought is that nobody has got weakness. Everybody will have only strengths. What exactly does it mean? Each of them will have a characteristic which could be 34 in number. In some school of thoughts, they will say your 34th happens to be your weakness. My school of thought believes that all these are strengths. Right from the president of a country to the watchman of a institution, everyone come across with just 34 different strengths. Now, once you start focusing on your top 5 strengths, you get empowered. So how exactly do I address this question, answer this question? Once you start knowing what your strengths are, and you start focusing on what your strengths are, you will end up choosing a career which will be meaningful and merrier for you all through your life. It is just the strength of yours has to be identified, and we have tools to identify those strengths. And if it is identified, and if you are coached that with this strength, these are the careers that you can get through. These are the strength to me is a natural talent which comes back of your hand, brother. So those strengths, for example, my number 1 strength happens to be ideation. Number 2 strength happens to be strategy. Give me any problem, I'll give you 360-degree solution for it. Every problem will have different solutions. We'll be able to bring about and give those solutions. Likewise, every individual has got strengths in them, natural talents in them. That has to be identified. Once that is identified, the career path becomes easier and brighter.
Oh, thank you, Dr. KKR. Those are very inspirational thoughts. I like your focus on positivity and the strength. We have just a few minutes more. Let's go to Mr. Anantharaman Mani and then to Dr. Amruth for concluding thoughts.
Yeah, I'll kind of keep it short. So for me is letting go of fear, right? See, what's this grade and examination is done is in terms of fear of failure. If we change that mindset to look at grade as more like, hey, I want to be healthy, and this weighing machine is just going to save me the weight, right? It's not a judgment on my character or my success. So if you look at grade as just in terms of certain indicator in terms of what you have done and learned, and not give it too much of importance that grade is going to be my life decision. That along with letting go the fear of failure or accept failures. Failure is fine. You try something new, you fail, you accept it, move forward, keep trying, right? That is extremely important. The second point is in terms of ability to work not as individual, but collectively with somebody else, right? As a team. Can you build something together as a team? Can you learn together as a team and create something and solve problems, either society problems or a personal problem as a team, and not as one individual? Right now, the education system is focusing and pushing people to one corner as the individual and be fighting against the book or education and being graded, right? But most of our work in life is collective work, either as a family or as a friend or as a company, as an entrepreneur. We don't work as one individual. But the school and examination doesn't empower you to do that. If you can accept failures and work as a team, I think the humanity and education system will change for better. That's the point here.
Thank you for those words of wisdom. Dr. Amruth, any concluding remarks from you?
Yeah, yes. That Isha Arora's question is quite relevant because in continuation to what Anantharaman Mani says, examination is nothing but an organized violence across the world. It just does not only the achievement, it does socioeconomic status of the children. That's what is the examination system is testing across the world. High stake tests in all across the country is testing the result of which is not the achievement of the student, but the result most often reflect the socioeconomic status of the parents of the children. I would say that we learn so many things. That's what the question of Aurora. We learn a lot of things at educational institution which doesn't have much huge usability or applicability in the normal life, but it has, I believe, because it's not the content that you learn, but the habits and the other hidden curriculum that we learn in the institution has a lot of role in pigeonholing an individual into a particular place in the niche in society. So education is mainly working not on the base of the apparent content, but on the base of hidden aspects of politics. And it has the definite job of shaping a society so that status quo will never remain challenged. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Amruth, and thank you to our three speakers. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. I think this was a very fascinating and engaging conversation. We got a lot of questions, some we weren't able to get to, but I think in general, we covered most of the topics that our questioners asked. I want to thank our viewers online who followed this program and also for submitting questions. And most of all, I want to thank the three speakers today. Again, Dr. KKR, Mr. Anantharaman Mani, and Dr. Amruth. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for your time and sharing your expertise and inspiration with our viewers today. Thank you so much.